Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of the video. I just want to start by saying I do apologise about the last video. I wasn't too happy with it. It cut off in the middle, that was my fault, and it kind of threw me off a little bit, so I did forget to put some things in. I'll do my best with this video. I've took some notes. I'm going to drop it in, or some extra things in, just to obviously make that up. I would also like to apologise by saying that someone mentioned in the comments that they could hear my seat squeaking. I do apologise if that does annoy anybody. I know it's Father's Day. I'm actually looking for a new one. I'll get one in due course. So apologies to anyone if that is throwing you off. So in this video, I'm going to talk about, well, the truth about asylum seekers, limited capability for work capability assessments, and I'm going to talk about childcare costs as well, because I know that's obviously having a lot of problems for people, getting them verified and getting them covered, because they obviously need to do that to go out to work. So we'll be covering some things in here about that as well. So I'll just start off by saying that the vast majority of asylum seekers that come to this country, they're not asylum seekers. They're coming from countries that are in peacetime. Now, some of them will be coming from countries that are war torn, but for the most part, they're coming from peacetime countries. Now, if they are from war torn countries and war torn countries that have been destroyed by British taxpayers' money through British foreign policy, then I don't think we can deny them coming here, because at the end of the day, we've destroyed their countries. That's obviously another video. However, they're not coming here for asylum. They're coming, or for access to asylum rather, they're coming here for access to an easy system. Now, who am I to deny anyone an easier life? I was always told to make life as easy on yourself as you can. So if you're sitting in a country where things are getting a little bit difficult for you and you're struggling to feed your kids, etc., pay your bills, as we are here in Britain, then you're obviously, if you see a country that you can then go to for asylum, you think, well, I can get paid for my kids, my rent, my standard allowance, all that could be paid for. I could get a smaller job, I could work less hours, and I would be able to spend more time with my kids. That is, well, I don't know if they think like that, but they definitely think about getting an easier access to an easier system, which is fine. It's only that we're going to have to start closing the doors, because if you've got people in your country and citizens in your country are calling up the national helpline and saying, look, I'm hungry, I've not got enough to feed my kids, or I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I can't put my electricity on, or I won't be able to eat tonight, then how the hell can you send out beacons to other countries to say, well, you come here and we'll look after you? If you're not looking after your own citizens, then how can you look after citizens of other countries? Now, these citizens, these asylum seekers, or claiming to be asylum seekers, if they had any sense at all, they would remain with the devil in which they are already acquainted. Because them coming here, if you can't look after your own citizens, then you know by that definition, if you're not looking after your own citizens, then the fact that they're asking you to come here must be part of some agenda. And it's the agenda that we've spoken of, Agenda 2030, getting people into super cities. That is what this is about. They don't care about people. They do not care about people. I now know that for a fact. I've always known it, but I know it for a fact now. So the fact that they're saying, oh, come here and we'll look after you, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what they are. And we need to be wise to it. So, by all means, if you think that you're going to get a better life here, you stroll on, but you might be in for a shock, because as there are a lot of families have actually gone back to their respective countries due to the fact that it wasn't what they thought it was, because the cost of living is so high. So they might want to just sit and have a little think about that just before they do so. Anyway, when they do come into into Britain, now the first thing they do is obviously claim benefits. The second thing they then do is request, or maybe not exactly the second thing, very early on in their tenure in this country, they will request a work capability assessment. And I just don't think it's right, and I didn't think it at the time, because, see, the problem we've got is, right, okay, you can say to your citizens that, well, there's a work capability assessment you can have when you get sick or whatever and you can't work, right? That's fine. So you've contributed to the British economy, you've worked here all your life, whatever, etc., etc. But when you've got people coming in from other countries who have said, well, actually, I've got these, and most of them haven't got any sickness. Not any sickness that restricts them from working. Some of them have, but most of them haven't. So they'll request a work capability assessment the minute they get here, and more often than not they get it due to the woke culture that's in the DWP, and I've experienced that. I'll go into that in a second, but they experience the woke culture so overwhelmingly. I think they're giving it to more people from foreign countries than they are British people. Now that's how we create a divide and a hatred. I would absolutely encourage and I would call for you not to get involved in that, because that is how they work this divide and rule tool that they've used, and it's worked so well for them over the decades and eons and centuries. And what they do is, so they bring in these people and they give them more sickness benefits even though they've not contributed to the economy. And then the people that have contributed to the economy who don't get LCWRA but rather LCW, which is no payment, then it's going to stir up hatred and anger in the citizens that have contributed to it. Now, again, I would encourage you not to get involved in it, because you can't hold it against the people coming in. All they're doing is trying to make things easier on themselves. And if we had been given the same opportunity as some sunny peninsula in Spain or Italy or somewhere like that, or anywhere, had said, look, British people, you can come here, we will pay your rent, we'll pay your living expenses until you get a job, blah, blah, blah. You would be emptying your bank account and on the next, onto the airport before you could say aeroplane. And that is what would happen, me included. So that's why I don't hold it against them, because they're just trying to take up an opportunity for a better life or something different, which is absolutely fine. Now, if they like I say, they overwhelmingly get it more, but I'm still not holding it against them. Now, the LCWRA and LCW, I mean, I'm going to go into more of it in a second, but you get paid for LCWRA, but not for LCW. Now, LCWRA, the vast majority of asylum seekers or people from other countries that had came here, they were all LCWRA, or most of the ones that I'd worked with. But there was a lot of British people that were getting LCW, and it was just absolutely wrong, and they were having to go through mandatory reconsiderations to get LCWRA, and it's just absolutely it's wrong. But again, I call for you not to get caught up in the hatred of it all, because they do this on purpose, so that you'll hate them coming in. Now, this is obviously done. It's done to destabilise the community, the country, and the economy, and it's done all of that. It's done all of those and more. And again, it's not about wokeism or race or being woke and saying, or not being woke and saying you can't come in. It's not because we need to shut the doors to look after our own, and then perhaps later on we can maybe look at them coming back in, or asylum seekers coming back in, but not until then. And it has to be halted. And they keep saying about Sunak and about the Rwanda plan. He's got absolutely no intentions of enacting that, because it's not in the wish of his masters to do so. So that's why he won't do it. And then you've got Keir Starmer on the other side, Sir Keir Starmer. I mean, could you be any further away from what the Labour Party's supposed to be with a title like that? You obviously can't. And then, like I say, it's the woke culture's working well for them. And I'll briefly just say that when I was on the telephone lines, we were always told to follow process, as I've said. And I mean, this is how bad it is and how fascistic it is. You're not even allowed to say have a good day or take care or it was nice to speak to you or anything like that. Because, well, they say that you can't say have a nice day because if someone's not got much money or whatever, you can't have a nice day. But my argument to that was, but surely you can say take care, because it doesn't matter what's going on in your life or what your situation or your plight is. You have to take care regardless. So that was my argument. So I would say, look, take care. And I got marked down for it every single time. It's not about that. They don't want... It's just taking the humanity out of everything. This is what dystopian means. It means to take joy and happiness out of everything and replace it with anger, fear non-humanitarian ways, and it's just, I'm sorry, but I'm not accepting it. I mean, the same company, and I've got this, and I'm going to try and work it into a video somehow to show the screenshots that I've taken, and one of them is where you're not allowed to take any toilet breaks outside your scheduled breaks. So if you did, and I did it because obviously eat health food, and that's got antioxidants in it, so you obviously need to urinate more often. And my argument was like, well, I'm not consenting to that because everything's consensual. And it was over the course of an 8.5 hour shift. It was about, I think it's 5 minutes 36 seconds. And there's a red mark next to my name for that, for me taking that toilet break. Now, I contacted a human rights board and asked them about it, and they basically told me that the only way they can enforce it is if you actually accept it and consent to it. So I messaged my manager, the aforementioned guy that I mentioned, that I talked about, and I said I wasn't consented to it. He proceeded to keep marking the red mark down next to my name, like. But that was on him to do that. It was apparently just doing his job. So it's like, I mean, to say you can't use the bloody toilet outside a break is just utter madness. And then you think about the micromanagement tactics and how they actually, in an already stressful environment where the welfare calls are 80% of the time, and or serious welfare rather, and you're then being micromanaged already in a stressful environment. And it's just, how is that not fascism? That's the kind of thing you would have seen in Nazi Germany. It's just, this is where they want to take us, because the same networks that were behind that organisation, whatever you want to call it, is the same people that are pushing COVID and apparent cures to that and all that other nonsense. And again, this is the reason for the videos. And it's shown in their processes that this is the way these people are thinking, and again, it's all part of the plan. Now, if you request a work capability assessment, I would suggest that you obviously hand in your fit notes while you're doing that. Now, if it doesn't go your way, you can always request that mandatory reconsideration, and even if that doesn't go your way, you can request a tribunal. You can go through the government website to do that. There's also an independent case examiner on there as well. I think I mentioned it before, that you can obviously detail any complaints to. So these are things that you obviously need to know about. And I can tell you, I'd only seen about 8. All the calls I'd taken, I'd probably seen about 8 people go to tribunal, because the vast majority of people think it stops if I don't get the mandatory reconsideration, that's it, all over. It's not. You've got to take it to a tribunal, and like I say, every single time I've seen somebody do that, they've won it. It was about 7 or 8 times I'd only seen it, but they'd won every single one. And some of them, the lies and inconsistencies that were told to claimants were just, they were endless. They were absolutely endless. So they are lying to people, there's no doubt about that. And this is the problem, a lot of them aren't following policy, they're doing things off their own back. So they're obviously, a lot of them are deeply disturbed people, that's why they're sociopathic. And they do things that they want to do, not what they're supposed to do. And if you are a deeply unpleasant person, which a lot of them are, then yes, that is exactly what they'll do. They won't help you, because people like that, they don't like to help people. So that is worth mentioning. Now, LCWRA, someone mentioned in the comments if I was going to be doing a video on this, and I said yes, and the reason is and they were going through the situation like I've seen many times, and that is handing in fit notes, but still expected to be attending work programmes. Now, I know it's all based on commitments, and you accept these commitments that you will look for jobs in this industry for this amount of time during a week, and you'll attend your interviews, right? That's fine. You're obviously in health when you do that. But if you then end up getting an injury or an unexpected health condition, which so many people are running into just now, I'm sure you can agree with that. And you end up having to go to the job centre, they will just continue on the work programme with you. But the thing is, when you agreed the commitments, you were obviously in health. When you're handing the fit note in, the doctors obviously said you're not capable for work. But so many of these bloody work coaches, these disturbed work coaches, are still treating people like they should be at work, and it is absolutely causing, it's increasing mental health, because mental health problems, there's absolutely no doubt about it. And then why wouldn't it? I mean, if you think about it, stress, worry and fear and anger, those are all low vibrational energies, and if you engage in them enough, you'll create disease, which is disease. That is literally stress and fear. It poisons the cells. It's the most common way we do that, and it brings the symptoms through. If you consider that and you think about the way this is set up, you just imagine the illness that must be causing. And I've heard it. I've heard people calling up after not been sleeping for 3 days because they're worried about some redundancy payment that they were going to be getting, thinking they're going to get into trouble. I even had one lady tell me, she phoned me up in an absolute state, and she'd said, look, I'm really, really worried. She said, just calm down, what's wrong? And she'd said, I think I'm going to get into trouble. And I said, why? And she said, oh, my brother, bless his heart, he's actually given me some money to go on holiday, because it's obviously been a very difficult time for me. And she said, it's about £600. And she says, what do I do? What do I do? And I had said, look, I'll tell you what you're going to do. I can't remember her name. You're going to hang this phone up, and you're going to pack your bags, and you're going to go on that holiday, and you're not going to think another thing about it, because it's a lovely thing that your brother's done for you. But this person thought that she had. See, this is what it does. This is what happens when there's a constant repetition of low vibrational behaviour, if you like, doing this to people. It breaks their mind down, and it gets them under control, and they start doing things like that. They do things like that without even well, their triggers are when they send notifications. I actually had a guy on the phone one day, and he just had a heart attack, as so many people are just now, and I'll go into why that is in later videos. But he just had a heart attack, and because, see, phone claimants are there for people that maybe haven't got a smartphone, or they aren't online or something like that, and they need to obviously call up, and it's still an account, they just can't see it, we manage it for them, and it's usually people that are vulnerable, that's got health conditions or whatever. And he'd called me up in a panic, because even just the fact that he'd been notified to call Universal Credit was enough to send him over the edge. And I had said to him, look, I'm going to start reading it. I can't even remember what it was. It was nothing too serious. But as I was reading this letter, it sounded like he was having another heart attack. And this is what you're like, a doctor. You're just not trained for it. But obviously you need to try your best. And I was sort of acting like a doctor, just trying to get me concentrating his breathings. Look, I was saying, look, don't worry, just stay calm, or as calm as you can. I can keep you on the line, and I can get through to the emergency services as we need it, and we can get them to you as quickly as we can. But this is what it does to people. This is what it bloody does to people. And I was actually having to stop a guy from having a heart attack for no other reason than I was having to read a notification to him. And I think it wasn't anything serious, because I can remember saying to him, look, you've done all that for no reason here. You've actually just hurt your own health for no reason. And I used to say, I know it's easy for me to sit here and say that, because I'm here and you're on that end of the phone, but as you see, there was absolutely no need for any of it, because there was nothing to worry about. It was the same, there was a lady I had up, she'd called me up, and she'd been awake for 3 days. I can't remember if I've said this in the first video or not, so I'll just briefly tell it again. And she was awake for 3 bloody days, and she was waiting on her redundancy that wasn't even anywhere near what it needed to be for her to report it. But this again is what it does. It breaks people down, and they start following it without even being asked. And some of the work coaches, they're obviously adding to that, and that they are deeply unpleasant people. And someone asked me in the comments if they could give any advice on how to actually speak to these people, and I would encourage that if you are having a hard time from your work coach, first and foremost, remember there's always an independent case examiner. And secondly, if you don't want to go down that route, I would just, as a human being, and do this obviously peacefully and calmly, and with non-aggressively, and just look them in the eye and ask them, or remind them rather, that they have a duty of care to you. That they have signed a contract to say that they will coach you back into employment, regardless of the fascistic nature of the policies. They've still signed a contract, which means they've got a duty of care to coach you back into employment in the best way that they can. And so many of them are not doing that. And I would look them in the eye, and if they are being sanctioned, look them in the eye and ask them, why are you doing this to me? Do you have any idea of the effect that this is having on my life? I mean, I've even had people saying to me in the comments that they're having their work coach trying to push them into employment, into more hours. And yes, that is absolutely happening all the time as well. And I'll briefly tell you my experience with that. I had a lady who was working 16 hours. She was a beautiful, lovely lady to speak to, and she was what you would want in a mother, absolutely everything, or anyone, or a friend, anyone really. And she was doing everything correct, and she was caring for somebody for 35 hours while working 16 hours. And she was going to the job centre. This new work coach, he was new, trying to push her in. Oh, well, just put it. Are you going to get more hours? She was like, well, I'll try. And so many people, they're non-confrontational, so they just sort of do what they're told. And he basically put it down that she was doing 24 hours because that's your target, so we'll just put that down just now. She'd gotten through to me, and I asked her the obvious question. I said, have you got the time for these extra 8 hours? And she said, no. And I said, right, okay. I said, well, you need to tell them that. And I said, then anyway, are you actually working? How many hours are you working? She said, 16. I said, well, this guy is going to get into trouble for this because we were always told to keep things accurate. And that's not accurate. That's not keeping it accurate, because you're saying somebody's doing more hours than what they're actually doing. And you would get into trouble for that. He should have got into trouble for it. Anyway, I emailed his job centre with one of those forms I mentioned, and I told them, I says, look, you can't be putting hours down that this person's not working. And I said, and that's beside the point. The person's not got the time to do these hours. She's bloody caring for someone that's got serious health conditions. She's got kids to look after. She's working 16 hours to try and cover the bills. And now what you're doing is you're putting more pressure on her and more stress, asking her to do another 8 hours. Not only that, you've added the 8 hours onto her claim, and she's not even acquired them yet. And you never ever hear anything back, because you would like to think they would be told, look, you can't bloody do that. You've got to follow the job and the way you're taught to do it. And this is what's happening, and I can't imagine what it must be doing to people. If you go into your doctor and you're in a lot of pain, which a lot of people are just now. I know a lot of people shun responsibility with mental health and limited capability for work, and it's true, but there is a lot of mental health, physical health problems at the moment. And I mean, I used to get it all the time, where people would, if they had to go and verify something at the job centre, they would come right out with, oh, I don't leave the house. I said, well, why not? Oh, because I've got mental health problems. Now, you can tell by their tone they're lying to you, because you know the difference. You get to know the difference. And I would say, look, you're not going to get your next payment until you get down to the job centre. Oh, look at my account, I'm LCWRA, I don't leave the house. It's like, but... And I said, well, if that's the case, then they will have to come to you, which will take 7 days at least. And her payment was in like 2 days' time, so she was going to lose it. And she was getting very angry. And I said, but look, I don't make the rules. This is what you need to verify. This is for your security, so that no one can change their bank details onto your account and steal your money, so they know it's you that's done it. Absolutely at her wit's end with it, just venomous. And the thing about it is, if I'd said to her, by the way, there's a £5,000 back payment waiting there at the job centre, but you need to show up to pick it up, I'm quite sure she would have got by her mental health problems and managed to get to the job centre, even if it was 50 miles away. So this is the difference. People use it as an excuse. They use it as an excuse to shun responsibility. I mean, I had a guy one day, he'd phoned up asking for his payment. I said, but you've not, this is on a phone claim. He's like, you've not even set your claim up yet. Oh, I was at the job centre yesterday. I said, but it's not been set up. Oh, they said they have. And I'd said to him, I said, but it's your responsibility. The minute I said the word responsibility, it was, I've got mental health problems. And I actually asked him, I says, does your mental health problems mean that you can't use the phone? And he knew he couldn't, because he knew he couldn't be smart with it, because he was obviously on the phone to me. And I said, and exactly. So I said, would you like me to set it up now for you? Yes, and that's obviously how you get through it. But this is the time that, I mean, this is the type of clientele you're dealing with, and this is the problem. See, someone mentioned in the comments also that the people that need this, a lot of the time don't get it, because there's so many claimants that don't need it that are trying to get it. Because, and I understand it, you don't want to go to the job centre, no bloody wonder, I understand that. But what it's doing is, it gives these people the justification for their measures or their policies, because they can then just say, well, we have to do this, and not too many people would disagree, because they would say, right, yeah, they're right, they have to stamp out benefit cheats, which is right. I mean, you do this because it does actually stop the people that need it from getting it. And I mean, with regards to LCWRA, like I said before, I mean, this asylum seekers, when they come in, They request a work capability assessment, they get their LCWRA, and then the first thing they do is they go and get full-time employment. Now, I know it's limited capability for work and it's not against the rules, but when every single one of them are doing that, you know it's just a ploy. It's obviously a ploy from previous people that's entered the country to say, oh, by the way, it'd just be like if you were to go somewhere else and there was something like that, people would be telling you, oh, by the way, if you ask for this, you can get this. It's no different here, and that's what they're doing. But they're going out to work after it now. If that is what's happening, why the hell can they not just say, right, well, this is obviously what people need to live. They need the standard allowance, their housing, and their LCWRA. Why not just give them it? And as I mentioned in an earlier video, in the first video, when we've got the military budgets we have, I don't see why that's a problem. I really don't see why that's the problem. And you see, and oh, we need defence, right? Okay, but what about the COVID advertising and the deal that they'd struck in 2020 that was to run into this year? Why are we still paying for COVID advertising in 2024? And more importantly, these contracts that we're giving out, where's the money gone? It's just, and you'll find that Rishi Sunak's even got people involved, or his wife has. She's connected to some company dealing with this kind of stuff, and it's just so corrupt, it's unbelievable, and we're just supposed to sit back and take this and not question it and not say anything, and it's like, yeah, no problem, mate, I'll just sit back and take it. And then if you do question it, you're regarded as racist through the woke culture, the woke ideologues. And it's just, it silences people, and it silences them because they don't want to be labelled as a racist. But I don't care. I've got no problems with transgender people. Now, that's what I was going to say as well with regards to the process. When you're not even allowed to, like on the phone, you're not allowed to say sir or madam in fear of offending these people. And like I'd said, I said, look, I'm not pandering to ideologues. It's not happening. We've used these common courtesies for probably at least hundreds of years anyway. To greet people every day, and I'm not going to stop doing that. I mean, even the fact that they call themselves Mr. or Mrs. should permit you to do it, but even then, oh, don't use it. And it's just so dark and unbelievable, and it's changing society. It's changing, and what they do is as well, these people, they've got such a sense of entitlement. They just think that that they can do whatever they want, and everyone, they can shout and scream, and they can call you this and call you that, and the minute you disagree with them or you post a challenging question, that makes you transgender phobic or whatever they want to call it, or anti-LGBTQ or whatever they've added to it. And I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, some of these woke things that's going on. I mean, I seen a lady, well, I don't know what she was sitting dressed like a Teletubby with these two things on. I think she did identify as a Teletubby, and she was sitting there absolutely demanding that everybody succumb to her narrative and that respect her, and she's been victimised and all the rest of it. And I mean, you're not going to get any respect from anyone sitting on a panel doing that, not even from the Teletubbies. And it's just, she blew my mind, she honestly did. I'll call her she because she looked like a woman to me. And then there was another time I'd seen one with Jordan Peterson. He combats this kind of thing, he's good with it. And she had basically, she wasn't obese, but she was overweight. And she was obviously deeply disturbed with the way the world was going because she's following all this woke nonsense. Well, anyway, she'd questioned Jordan to say, look, why have you said to clean your room and do this and sort yourself out? That's not exactly productive for me. And what she couldn't understand was that it didn't literally mean, well, yes, clean your room, obviously keep things organised, but what he meant was get off your bum and start working out and get yourself into a routine and keep things organised, and the world around you will change. And that is absolutely true, but this person couldn't grasp that. I know it's true because I've done it. I was 21 stone. I was 21 stone in 2018, at the start of 2018, and I fasted my way out, fasted and exercised my way out of it. And I was told that what I was doing was dangerous, but it wasn't, because it's changed my life, and I'm going to do a video on it. But this is where this woke culture is. That's shunning responsibility. I don't need to take responsibility for me. I'm in this situation because you're bad. You've made me into this situation. You've bullied me my whole life. You've said this about me, said that. This is basically what these elites, or the people that's running this, are saying to these people, and they don't realise they're being played like a violin. And like I say, I mean, some of them are mentally ill. I'm sorry, but they are. And they're just, I mean, I'd seen one day identified as a, no, what was it, that person in Germany? He had said that he was in a relationship with a bloody Boeing 747. And they had these Boeing 747s and having sex with him in his room. And apparently he used to jump onto this particular plane that he was in relationship with. And he'd clapped up so many miles on this plane so that he could spend time with his loved one. This is true, this is true. Just type in German lad, relationship, aeroplane, words to those effect, and you'll come up. This is absolutely true. But this is what happens when you don't get it together and you don't sort your mind out and connect with your energy. Because there's a saying, I don't know who it was that said it, but if you don't control your own mind, somebody else will. And within that, I've just described woke culture, because that's the way it is. It's like, same with people that were on board with the vaccination programme. And I don't need to think, family members' mind on it. I don't need to think, because I've got a friend who's high up in the NHS or this doctor, because they've done it for me. It's absolutely ridiculous, and this is where it ends up. This is how it ends up when people don't think about the world that they're in. This is where we end up, because we've lost our maps. I mean, I've used this analogy before. Like if you're in a maze and you're sort of with your girlfriend or whatever, and you're walking around and you're having it's a beautiful day and you walk around for a while and you've got it all to yourself and a bit of gust of wind comes and the map disappears. The map to the maze disappears. I mean, at first you're going to be okay, you're like, it's not too bad, I'll get out of here. But after a while, problems are going to arise because you're going to start to get worried and you're going to get panic, I'm going to get out of here. Well, that's what's happened with life. We've dropped our maps and now where everybody's looking around wondering what the hell's going on. Well, we need to pick our maps up, and we do that by connecting with our consciousness, with our minds again. And you can only do that by educating yourself, and I don't care what anybody thinks of you for it. If you want to learn something new, you absolutely can, but I'll go go into that in other videos. I'll stick to where I was with this video. So yeah, LCWRA, and like I say, it's good for the people that need it. But if you are having issues with a work coach that's overriding your doctor's notes or your doctor's lines, then I would absolutely go down the route of the independent case examiner. That would be my advice to you, and I think you'd probably be very surprised at just how much help you'll get from it, because a lot of people think that mandatory reconsiderations, that's where it ends, and it just isn't. So if you think you can do it, you can. Just don't think that you're powerless. As long as you change your thinking on that, you will be absolutely fine. So just obviously keep chopping on with it. Sorry, I do apologise. I'm just having a little look at my notes here since I went off on track. Yeah, so the next part of it is case manager sabotage and account restrictions. Now, case manager sabotage is a huge problem, especially with housing and SMI loans. And I think it struck me last night. I had one or two thoughts about doing a video solely dedicated to that, because I think I should have enough content on it to be able to do it. Because that, I mean, although the system as a whole is causing serious problems, with regards to the SMI loans, that's people that need help with their mortgage when they've lost their job or run into health conditions or whatever, and they're not following processes with that, and they're probably sabotaging that more than anything, and that's understandable because they don't want people owning anything. The World Economic Forum, the guy that runs it, the guy that created it, Klaus Schwab, his mantra is, you'll own nothing but you'll be happy. Would you like to live in a world with somebody like that? A guy whose dad literally worked for the Nazis. It actually worked for them. And they obviously created this school in '92 as well, where it's Leaders of the Future or something it's called. And a lot of leaders who are in control just now attended that school. And it's no accident. And the World Economic Forum is the reason this is being rolled out. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these policies came directly from their buildings. And again, that's where we're at. But anyway, with SMI loans, I mean, they obviously don't want people. They want people to lose their homes because they don't want people in them. And I spoke to a lovely lady one day, and she was absolutely distraught. And I mean, we've got call times and that, but sometimes you throw it out the window. And I did that day because she needed my help, and I'm looking through, and I found her something, and I said, I don't even know if this will help, but you can give them a call and ask them. It had to do with the SMI loans through it. And she was absolutely destroyed. It's the only word I can use. She was destroyed and absolutely distraught, and she wasn't the only one. Every single one I'd spoken to had the same problem. I mean, I'm not to say everybody that applies for it this is happening to, because it's not everywhere yet, but it will be everywhere eventually if we don't do something about it. And these SMI loans if you don't pay for that, I mean, I've seen the mental health problems that are caused when people don't get their housing verified. I've seen that. That's bad enough because you've got the rent hanging out over your head, but at the end of the day, if you get evicted or whatever, then you go and find another council house. I know it's more difficult now, but that is sort of the reason you can think like that. Whereas with your home, if you own your home and you obviously had plans on completing the mortgage, and then you're told that, or you run into a health condition, you lose your job or whatever, and then you can't bloody get the loan verified because the case managers are sabotaging it, then that's just only going to increase it. And like I say, I mean, some people will have lost their homes, they're bound to have, because they're not doing their job correctly. I keep saying it. I keep saying the word inhumane as well, because that's what it is. And I mean, to sabotage, and what really annoys me about that is that when someone comes in, and this is happening to loads of people who are losing their houses, they're not getting things verified for months, but yet, and the first, well, one of the Ukrainian families that I dealt with, now I can count with one hand how many Ukrainian families I've dealt with, or Ukrainian people I've dealt with, but this one in particular, and this angered me, and I've screenshotted this as well. They literally they weren't in the country a week, and in that time, they had their housing verified, their bank accounts right, everything, absolutely everything was verified, good to go, within about 4 days. And the worst it was, I just spoken to someone who was basically just about to lose their home and I'm sending all these handovers to his case manager trying to get him in touch, and he wouldn't phone him. And yet you look at that, I was so angry with it, I thought, again, not because they're coming out of the country, I must be clear about that. It's nothing to do with it. It's just that if you can verify a Ukrainian family's whole account, everything, to do away with these mental health problems within 4 days, then why the hell can't you do it for people from Britain? That's my question. If you can do it for one, you can do it for them all. And if you're doing it for one and you're not doing it for the rest, then you're doing that deliberately. And why wouldn't it? Because Ukraine's a huge part of this agenda. And people talk about family members, oh, Ukraine. It's like, look, you were only bothered about Ukraine since it started coming on the news all the time with the war. I said a prayer for the Ukrainians back in 2019 when Zelensky was manipulated into the presidency by Biden as well. Biden was around that as well, and they're criminals in Ukraine. That's all been revealed with his son, with their crimes and energy, and they've got a lot to answer for with this energy crisis just now. And it's not a crisis. This was all planned. And what they done was they put Zelensky into Ukraine, and they knew that he was America's man, and they started doing war game exercises on the Russian border, which obviously Putin's going to mobilise his military for that, because obviously you would, a country like America who's started more wars than any of the rest of them, start doing that on your border, you mobilise your military. It's standard operating procedure. But they knew that he would do that, and every action has a reaction, and this is what's caused all the sanctions, and a lot of the energy was coming, a lot of the fuel and oil was coming from Russia, and because those, I mean, look at the one that got blew up, they blew that up on purpose. It's just a coincidence, nothing to worry about, as a mentor of mine always says. And this is all planned. This is all planned. This Zelensky, man, he's such a fraud. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's on Time of the Year, and he's rolled out in front of everybody. He's this modern day superhero that's saving the lives of Ukrainians. But I mean, before this war kicked off, I think it was something like 60% of Ukrainians' salaries were actually going on energy alone. So they were already in this situation, and it's obviously gotten worse. So I mean, I'm not saying there's not any Ukrainian families here. Of course there are. It's just there's not. If you were to believe the news, you would think that they'd be everywhere. Now I know there's probably more clustered in some places more than others, but I don't think there's quite as many as what they would have you believe. But I mean, this is where we're at. Sorry, I went off again. But anyway, yeah, if you can do that for a Ukrainian family, why can't you do it for a British or any other family for that matter? Because they can do it, and it's just wrong. And when I seen that, this was not long before I handed my notice, and I'd seen that, and I thought, nah, this has gone on long enough. This definitely something has to change here. And thankfully, I mean, I'm getting a lot of comments and that, and people are actually starting to see it for what it is. Or I mean, how could you not? But yeah, so this is sort of where we're at with that. I'm moving on to the next part, which is childcare costs. I mentioned at the start of the video. Now, childcare costs, they are causing a hell of a problems, just an unbelievable amount of problems. And I'll just start by saying that the people that were on child tax credits prior to having to be migrated across to universal credit, and this was a lady that told me, there's a few people that told me this, but this one in particular had said, yeah, they were brilliant, everything was done for you, and the payment was there waiting at the end of the month or whenever it was, and they basically taken care of everything. And she said, I got a bit concerned when I was asked to move across to universal credit, and she said she asked child tax credits what it would be like moving across, and this person at child tax credits, who wouldn't have been any of the wiser, had said, well, I think they'll be okay, they'll take care of everything. And she said those words to me, and after working there for nearly a year, they chilled me to the bone, and they still do. And I didn't have the heart to tell her that, well, you might run into some problems with that. And I didn't tell her, but I did say to her, look, and I told her about the process with regards to, I'm just going to get into it in a second, on how to do that. Now, so many people will report these costs and they'll get them done, no bother. Now, there was a lady in particular I'd spoken to, and she said, look, she said, I've been reporting, she said, I've had the same case manager for 7 or 8 months. And she said, I've been reporting the costs the exact same way for 7 or 8 months. However, I've just had my case manager changed to someone else, and I've put in the cost the exact same way, and yet they've not been verified. So I looked at it and I thought, there's the proof right there. So this case manager, the previous case manager, has been verifying everything right the way through, and then this new one straight away rejects it. So what I'd done was, I mean, that does prove it, and what I'd done was I'd sent a communication to the service centre. I said, look, I'd explained what had happened, and I says, look, can you send step-by-step instructions to this claimant's journal, so that the claimant could refer back to them and say, well, I could, and for any future problems, she could say, well, you have sent me the actual instructions. I've followed those instructions by the number. I mean, you're saying I can't verify them, so you must be sending, the service centre, not you, the service centre must be sending out the wrong information. And that is the way to combat that, and I started to see it more and more, where people had the steps put in their journal, and it was obviously for that reason. And because people are, see, this is the thing, right? Childcare costs, if you're getting 85% paid for, you obviously need that, or there's no point going to work. Now, there's so many people that have emptied their bank accounts to pay these childcare costs and thinking they're going to get them back, and they've not got them back for months, and then they'll maybe get them back and say, you've not reported this right, and you've not reported that right, and it just stresses them out. So you imagine the stress from one call, from getting through at the start with the security issues, dealing with the agent if you get a bad one, and then trying to get through to the fact that you've got these childcare costs, you've been reporting them for the same way, and yet they just keep rejecting them. That, oh, well, you're trying to keep your job, look after your kids, and be a wife to your husband, or whatever. I can't imagine, and I'd just like to say that I've got so much, and I used to say this every day to not just married mums, but especially to single ones. I used to say, you're doing an absolutely amazing job. Some of them were amazing, most of them were amazing, I have to be honest, and they would just go out, they kept saying, no, as long as my kid's okay, as long as my kid's okay. And I used to say, I've got so much respect for you, and that they are doing an amazing job, and this is why they need help, they need a voice, because they're not getting it on from agents. I mean, they're not all like that, but the vast majority of agents couldn't care less, and the vast majority of agents, are a lot of these asylum seekers that are coming in, I mean, they were coming from countries that I'd never even heard of. So, I mean, I suppose if I haven't heard of them, I don't know, how do I know if they're war-torn or not, but I do know they were coming from countries that I'd heard of that I knew weren't war-torn. I mean, there's a lot of French and Algerians and Romanians, and it's like, so, yeah, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. So this person was trying to get her childcare costs verified, and this is the thing as well. After it, I mean, I don't see anything else after. I don't see them after it unless they get through to you again, which is very rare. It happens now and again, and we don't see what happens after that. So for all I know, that it could have been another 3 months that person was trying to get those costs verified, and she didn't get them verified. So I mean, I'd like to think she would have in the end, but like I was saying there, I mean, I've seen people emptying their bank accounts, I've seen people using their rent payments or their rent accounts, or even borrowing from family and then having a time of it to get it back. And I would encourage that you please don't do that. Don't do that. I know children are losing spots, and this is another thing. These kids are losing their spots at these nurseries. Thankfully, there's some fantastic nurseries out there that are aware of this issue, and they're obviously trying to accommodate as best they can. But if it doesn't get done in a timely manner, then they will lose their spot. And like I said, they need it. They need that spot, obviously, to continue through. But to sabotage something like that's just beyond me. But thankfully, there is something called the Flexible Support Fund. Now, it's just absolutely despicable that they don't tell anybody about this. This Flexible Support Fund, it's not just for claiming back childcare costs. It's claiming. It's for claiming, like if you are been unemployed for a while and you've not got any money, and you somehow get a job, or you get a job, or you maybe need work boots, or you maybe need to get some uniforms or some clothes for an interview, or some money for travel to get to the job or to get to the interview, you can use this, what's known as the Flexible Support Fund. And I mentioned in the first video the issue with the PAT form, because that's the form you need to use. And when you call up, it takes about 7 minutes to fill that form out. So if they hang up pretty quickly saying they've done it, they've not. And if they've not confirmed your national insurance number with you, they've definitely not done it. So that's one thing that needs to be confirmed. And like I say, it takes between 5 and 7 minutes. And childcare costs, uniforms, anything to do with work, you don't get upfront rent payments out at that. You speak to your council about that, I think, if I remember rightly. But this Flexible Support Fund has always been there. It has always bloody been there. And they don't tell people about it. And if you do need some of that kind of assistance, especially childcare costs, then I would encourage that you do that. Now, I'm not saying too much about housing verification, because like I say, I'm going to do a video on its own of that. Just I'll probably do that. I might do that next. I'll see. It might be the one after. But yeah, this is just a small part of it. I mean, if people can't get their childcare costs bloody verified, then what's the point of them going to bloody work? It's just they're just not going to do it. And again, I can't stress enough, if you need help, there is help out there. There's the independent case examiner. There's also places like what's that? I forgot that. There's Turn to Us. Advice Now, the website's called. That's got hundreds of different things on there. And it's like a signposting website where it can signpost you to organisations that can advise and help you based on what your problem is. So it's just about knowing what you're entitled to. And if you do know how to navigate the system a little bit better, it can make it easier. But I just to say to people every day, and I know it was easy for me to say it, but please don't let this benefit system stress you out. Don't let work coaches do that to you. Don't let the case managers do that to you. And like I say, some people get good case managers and they get changed. And again, there's not a racist bone in my body, but a lot of these foreign case managers they are. I mean, they're like gangsters. They are like gangsters. Some of them they just do not care. They've got no empathy. They've got no compassion. It's like they're emotionless. And I've had to email a few of them to say, look, this person, you can't do this. This you need to do your job. You've got a duty of care here. And you would never ever hear back from any of them, and that was the proof they knew what they were doing. Because if they genuinely thought I'm very sorry, I thought this is how it's done, they didn't. They knew what they were doing. They're just deeply disturbed people. And I'll say it again, I would love to know if a case manager used to work there or whatever can fill me in on how their interview went. I would really love to know that, because I would love to know how they are psychologically profiling people, because they're definitely doing it. Now that doesn't mean to say they're doing it for every single work coach and every single case manager, of course not, but they will be looking for a certain type of personality, because they're doing it in the police now as well. This is how they do it. This is how they get people to run their business, run their way, and run it into the ground, call it what it is, which is more than happy for them. That's good news for them. This is why we need to wake up and educate ourselves and arm ourselves with knowledge and how all this stuff works, because we will get there. I can promise you that we'll get there. If you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you will achieve goals. It does no good to think how hard or how long it's going to take you, because you will just not start if you think like that. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, start with a small step and take it from there, and that does eventually climb mountains. So it's just all about changing your thinking. As I mentioned before, I I am going to do some videos on that as well. So the next part I want to get to, this is a really, really terrible part of it as well. Account suspensions. Now, account suspensions, this is worse than sanctions, because sanctions, at least you would have to have done something wrong for sanctions. Like if you've missed an appointment or you're not keeping with your commitments, then you can say to them, look, you've not got your payment because you've been sanctioned. Right, okay, that's fine. What do I need to do? And you would need to get them another appointment or something or whatever. But when someone's just kind of sort of going along their business and then they're coming up to their pay date and they go to the bank and they realise their money's not there, obviously if they've got their own claim, they'll log into that and they'll find out with a message words to the effect of, we believe the legitimacy of your claim is in doubt, and thus we have restricted or suspended your account until further information, until we've looked at it, blah, 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 blah. We will be in touch. And then they need to call the number and we need to send a communication to the risk review team to ask them to call them back. The only thing is, once they've done that, they've basically got to wait for the risk review team to call them back. So they're sitting there with no payment. They've had their payment restricted for no reason. Other than the fact that, well, they've obviously brought it in because so many people are coming into the country, they're thinking, well, we need to obviously monitor this, which they do, because there's loads of people who are coming into the country, setting up claims and putting in phony tenancy agreements and then going back to their respective countries and claiming the money back for it. The only problem is the people they were suspending the accounts of were British, and they'd always been British. They'd always lived here, so I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that. I mean, all you would really need to do is look at their account to see how long they'd left the country. If it's not long, or how often they left the country. If they hadn't done that, then I don't see the point in putting a suspension to check the legitimacy of their claim. It should really only be people that's coming in from other countries as well. You know what they're doing, but they're doing it to British people, or they're not even British people, people that have been here for a very, very long time. And it's just any excuse to stop payments. Because stopping a payment, it causes stress to anyone. If you can't feed your kids, you're not worried about yourself, you're worried about your kids. And it's even worse. I mean, there's so many people that skip meals now. I know loads of people. You see them in the street and they're losing weight. They're losing a hell of a weight. I mean, they may be on a programme, but the vast majority of a lot of people I see, I think, well, you're looking dangerously thin there. And it's because they're skipping meals for their kids. And it's just absolutely unbelievable. And it's because of these account restrictions and suspensions. And we are a proud nation, like, and I mean, I did notice there was a lot of people, they wouldn't, and I'd be the same, you wouldn't want to say these things, it's very personal, because we've not had to deal with these things for a long, long time. It's probably since the Second World War, the last time it was even remotely like this, with regards to needing resources. So, but if you're just restricting payments and suspending accounts, and like I mentioned in that last video, or one of the videos, how they're getting people to sit up on top of bloody wheelie bins, taking photos, selfie, the wheelie bin selfie with their bloody street in the background to show that they're in Britain, and even that, they would still ask for more information after that. They're sending people on wild, just goose chases, and it's like, who the hell do you think these are? This is bloody taxpayer money, and this is just more of that. It's just, I would love to know. See, these risk review teams, I'm not saying humans don't work there, but there must be some form of artificial intelligence involved in this. There must be, because I did speak to a guy one day and he had a text conversation because he had vulnerabilities or something like that, or he was texting them and they had said that, he'd said to me, he says, it was like I was texting with a computer. And today's world of artificial intelligence, I mean, would it be that surprising that that was happening? But this is what they're doing, and they're just slapping these restrictions on people. And I even had one where, and like I mentioned before, they've got people under control because they just constant repetition and nonsense. And this lady, because of this, she was getting a lot of hassle from her case manager, just a controlling case manager, narcissistic, control freak, sociopathic, deeply disturbed people that need to go and bloody sit in a corner or a darkened room and breathe or something, I don't know. But this woman had basically, she was asking, the case manager was asking her what was going on in her life, and she'd had a son or a daughter, and the daughter was living with the dad at the weekends, only at the weekends. I mean, I used to do that with my dad when I was young. You'd live at the weekends, and this case manager took it upon herself to suspend this woman's claim because she claimed the woman had told her wasn't being honest on her claim. She said, you've had a change in your life and you've not reported it. But there was no change. She was only visiting her dad for the weekend. And she'd called me up and said, and I said, look, I had to email the case. I said, look, Why are you suspending her payment? She's not reported the change because there's no change. Her daughter visits her dad at the weekend. That's all she was saying. She was trying to be honest with you. That doesn't mean you can suspend her bloody payment just because she said that. They must be saying to them, any excuse at all, you must sanction the payment. It's like that tool that I was working with. Oh, we'll need to sanction everybody to cover the national debt. And it's like, again, sanction people from here to infinity and it'll make a bloody blind bit of difference to it. So that, again, that'll be how he was sleeping at night. It's just, this is just ridiculous and we need to stop it. We need to become better people. If you're going to do a job like this, you've got a duty of care, you need to be a good person. If you're not a good person, if you don't possess compassion and you've not got the ability to empathise with someone's situation, then you should not be working with people who are in need. It is as simple as that. Get up and find a job more suited to your talents, like a gangland enforcer or something like that. You probably do quite well there. You might even rise to the top. So that would be my advice to you. And then it gets to the next part of it, which would be alternative payment arrangements. Now, this is another scam. It's another scam that absolutely infuriated me on a daily basis. Alternative payment arrangements, right? Okay. Before universal credit was brought into reality, it was job seekers allowance, and fortnightly you would get paid, which meant you got paid every 4 weekly. That meant you got paid for the whole year, the whole 52 weeks. But when they brought in universal credit, what they did was they had said to the people that, well, what we'll do is we'll start paying you monthly and we'll start getting you to pay your own rent. Now, David Cameron was still Prime Minister when this happened, and he was asked at a press conference what the thinking behind that was, and this was his answer. It was bullshit, but this was his answer. He basically said, well, actually, it's the reason we're doing it that way is because it makes people feel more part of society. They feel more normal because they'll be getting monthly the same as everybody else and they will be able to pay their own bills like everyone else. I mean, how patronising is that to turn around and say that? It's just like, that's bullshit, mate. That's nonsense. Like, there's no way that's why that was, especially when you consider the fact that it's actually just a further way to rip people off, not just in the benefit system, but if you're working for a company that's paying you on the same date every month, you're losing out on a month's salary. And I had this out with companies before I'd done this job and they assured me that it wasn't. But now that I've done this job, I know for a fact it's true because, again, if you've went from fortnightly to monthly, it's more difficult. I've spoken to people that have worked, and they've basically said they were never in debt until they started getting paid monthly. And this is the reason, because they're actually losing out on a month's salary, albeit the fact that they're having to wait longer to get paid. Whereas when you were getting paid weekly, if you were skint on Wednesday or Thursday, you only had to Friday to go to, and that was it. That was it normal. But because they've changed it around to one day every month, we're getting robbed, and the alternative payment arrangements prove that. So someone who decides that they can no longer afford to get monthly payments on universal credit because they can't wait that long, can then request to go back to fortnightly payments, thinking that'll solve their problem. And it might have if they'd kept everything the same as job seekers allowance. So what they do is, they'll request the alternative payment arrangement. It can't get enacted until the next assessment period, so it usually takes about a month to kick in. Once it does kick in, you'll get your payments fortnightly until you run into a 5-week month. As soon as you run into a 5-week month, and this happened every single day you were dealing with this, they would get it, say they get their pay on a Tuesday, 2 weeks time, Tuesday again, 2 weeks time, Tuesday again, and then maybe the third time they would do that, they would go to the bank and their money wouldn't be there. They would call us up and ask why. We would look at the statement and it would be more often than not on the Friday. And they would say, but you only just got it 2 weeks ago. I should be getting fortnightly. It's like, no, you've not requested it fortnightly. You've requested an alternative payment arrangement. But because there's 13 months in the year and there's 5-week months to make up that 13 month, there's going to be a period of time where you're going to have to wait longer. It's going to go beyond the fortnight that you've been waiting prior to that. And that was happening all the time. And that is down to the fact that because they're not getting paid fortnightly, they're getting paid on the same day every month, they're losing out on a payment. As long as you're working for a company that's paying you 4 weekly, you're still getting the full 52 weeks. And this is why they changed it. It's just a further way to scam society. And I mean, maybe somebody can fill me on it to say it gets filled in somewhere, but I just don't, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't, because you've got the same problem with your rent. Now the rent, and this was happening all the time as well, people were asking why they were in rent arrears. And I would look at their statement, and I would, because they would have a managed payment to the landlord in place, that's fine. So they obviously think, well, it's okay, the managed payment to the landlord's there, that's going to get paid directly to them, and I don't need to worry about it. And that's it, they put it out their mind. Then maybe 6 months down the line, or maybe the next year it usually is actually, because it obviously has to take a year, they maybe get a letter through, or they get a rent account through to say you're in debt or in rent arrears for a month's worth of rent. And then they call us up and they say, but I've got a managed payment to the landlord in place, how can that be? And then I would have to explain the 13 months, and you would get people saying, well, I would say, look, there's 13 months in a year, and they'd say, look mate, what planet are you on? And then you would explain what I've just said there. And then they, oh right, okay, so there is. And then I would have to say, so you agree we're on the same planet, we're on level terms now. And they'd be like, oh my God, so it is, I never actually thought of that. I mean, use your calculator, 365 days is 13 months. So if you're not getting 4 weekly, you're not getting fully paid. It's as simple as that. And what these housing associations are doing now, I'm going to do a video on this, they're actually going round and manipulating people, and they've got some disgusting housing and officers out there. There was one I seen the other week there that came here, and it was same deal, it was for the same thing, because of that 13th month, and I'd explained it to him, and he basically tried to tell me it wasn't true. So like, mate, I work for the DWP, or I did, so don't tell me what's right and what's not. Yeah, there's what's known as a, what's it called again? A discretionary housing payment for that. Because you're not responsible for paying your rent, they are. So you need to get a discretionary housing payment to cover that 4 weeks, because that's causing serious problems. So anyone, if you're in rent arrears and you're wondering what's going on, that is more than likely the genesis of your problem. They're not paying up 4 weekly. So there's some changes need to be made, and the only time we'll make changes when we come together, because politicians are not going to do it. As I mentioned earlier, Keir Starmer, that's a title that couldn't be any further away from what the Labour Party's meant to be about. It was Labour. I mean, it was set up for people, working classes, and socialism or whatever it is. Well, it's working class anyway, I know that. I don't pay much attention to them, like, because all they talk is nonsense. But that's what it was about. It was for the working person, but they're just so out of touch now. It's absolutely unreal. And again, we need to come together and start. I know I've said that loads of times. I don't know how else to say it. There's no other way to say it. In fact, I mean, even these people that are coming into the country that you think that's causing problems because you can't get into waiting rooms, and see, again, this is how they stir up this hatred. Because if your kid's not well, and there's nothing worse than seeing a kid unwell, all you want to do is take it away from them. So when your kid's unwell and you phone up the doctor and they say, oh, you can't come in for 3 weeks. What does that do? It creates anger, and then you obviously start to look for the reasons as to why that is. And the first one is, well, obviously the waiting rooms are full because of the people that's coming into the country, which is absolutely true, but they're also full of people that have encountered unexpected health conditions due to the apparent cure that was rolled out, and I am sorry for that. I have to call it the apparent cure because of the algorithms on here. This video will just get deleted. And I'm going to go into a video on how you can actually help yourself, and there's a potion, there's a juice you can make. I'm going to do a video on how you make it to get any of that nonsense out of your body if you've obviously came to the realisation that it was indeed a trial and not what you were told it was. But I will go into that in the video when I do it. I mean, I'm always at the end of this. I'm just thinking, again, I'm not a professional in this by any stretch of the imagination. I've just got to try and wing it as best I can. I need to try and write down the notes and take it through that, and try and cover as much as I obviously can. I think I have just about covered everything in here. I'm sure I'll get better at it as time goes on. I am going to continue to do these videos. Because I mean, I do like helping people, and I think that everyone's got something to offer. I don't care what your name is or what you've done or whether you thought you were intelligent at school. We've all got something to offer. We're all amazing eternal beings. And we're not just supposed to be here putting up with this nonsense, that much I can promise you. So anything I can do to try and get people to change their perceptions, not just on the world but on themselves, because if you can change the perception on yourself, the world around you must change. I mean, that's where politics go wrong. Politics they're out there, it's out there. They're out there screaming at the world, or that's what people do when they're voting with politics. They're out there screaming that the world demanding that the world change its ways. It's just not going to happen. It's as crazy as me screaming at that screen there, asking the DVD player to be changed. I mean, you would get taken away in an ambulance if I started to do that. I don't like that bloody film. Change, change, change. It's not going to happen. It's just going to keep playing until it stops. And then, what do I need to do to change that? I physically need to go inside the DVD player and remove the information that's playing and change the information, change the disc. It is exactly the same with reality. It's the same in here. You just need to change the information that's coming into here. And that's what, I mean, when I was younger, like, I was almost regarded as having learning difficulties because I was so slow at learning. And I wasn't regarded as intelligent, and I was seen as a pretty much a down and out that was never going to amount to anything. And I'm not saying I'm anything special now. Well, we're all special in our own way. But, I mean, you can learn whatever it is you want to learn. You don't need to obviously do what the world tells you. You've just got to change the information that's coming in here. And, I mean, if you're with a crowd of people that are laughing at you for having these sort of thoughts, and you do want to change, or if people are saying, oh, you'll never be able to do that, or they are laughing at your ambitions, then I'm afraid you have to lose them, because they're just going to bring you down. You're not going to, because they're going to sow doubt. The minute doubt's sowed into the player, that's it, it's all over, like. So I would encourage reading books. I know it's difficult. I mean, you don't need to buy the books. You can get them all in PDF online now. There's somewhere called archive.org. You sign up to it. You can borrow them to get them sent to your phone. I would absolutely suggest you do that. I mean, I know obviously I've not got any kids or any responsibilities like that, so I've obviously got more time to do these things, and I fully appreciate that. But read 15 pages a day, because it equates to about 25 books a year. Or 30 pages a day, is it? Or 30, I can't remember. It's something stupid like that anyway. If you just read 10, 15 pages, I think it's 15 pages a day, you'll cover about between 20 and 30 books a year. It's something, I mean, I know it depends on the size of the book, but for standard books. So yes, it's just about having the belief in yourself. And I know it's difficult when you've obviously got this benefit system, and this is the problem with it. So many people that I'd spoken to, they all thought that all these things that we've been speaking about here has only been happening to them. And I used to say to them, look, I know it doesn't really change much, but it isn't just you this is happening to everyone, especially with those earnings, when the earnings were, because there was people thinking, why is this happening to me? Or they were saying it to me, why is this happening? And I would explain why it's happening, obviously with the ways of the world. But I would obviously have to say that it's not your fault. I mean, it's just the way it goes. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, I just want to finish up by saying as well, if you do want to know what's going on in the world and you do want to learn a little bit more, it really is important to keep an eye on what the World Economic Forum are doing, because this is where a lot of this is coming from. They are the ones looking to change society. They are a corporation in their own right, and they're looking, this is what a technocracy is. It's corporations running your society for you, and that's what COVID was. We actually had a guy from Microsoft dictating world health. So I rest my case. I'll obviously have to go over my notes again to make sure I haven't missed anything at the end of it all. I think the next one's probably going to be the last one with regards to processes. This is all about housing, etc. And local housing allowances. I'm going to try and get, maybe not be that long, but it probably will be the last one with regards to content. Then after that, I'll go over everything, and anything that I've missed or I think it's important that needs to be dropped in, I'll do a final thoughts video, and then I can start moving on to other videos after that. I've one or two ideas could sort of transpired last night and to do stuff like so. I'm looking forward to doing it, and I'll try and obviously produce them as best I can. I would just like to say as well to thank everyone for their support. You've been absolutely amazing. It's the reason why I've obviously kept doing it. I really do appreciate it, because without you I wouldn't be doing it. And I'll do everything I can to try and help us out of this situation. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next video.